This week on ANN, we have updates on flooding in Indonesia and Southern Africa.
Maranatha rebuilds and dedicates a special church in Dominica.
And total member involvement heads to South Sudan and Ethiopia.
These stories and more coming up.
Thank you so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or ADRA, is working to aid communities in Indonesia after massive flooding in the province of Papua.
With roadways underwater, ADRA aid workers have been delayed getting to affected communities. Currently, ADRA staff and volunteers in local areas have been mobilized to conduct a market survey of available goods and prices.
On March 16th, flash floods and mudslides hit the eastern Indonesian province of Papua near the sub-district of Jayapura. The Adventist Church in the Southern Asia-Pacific region sent this report.
Thunderous sounds of boulders, massive logs, and torrential rains run down the mountainous regions of Sentani and Doyobaru in Papua, Saturday evening of March 16, leaving 104 people dead, 60 missing, 74 injured, and displaced more than 4,000 people in what is known to be the deadliest and most devastating landslide that ever happened in the province. Local reports said over 350 houses were destroyed and 2 main bridges were heavily damaged, making land transportation a greater challenge. Joint efforts from local government units and private sectors who continue to assess situation shows over 11,700 households in total were greatly affected by the calamity.
Kami ada di dalam rumah. Kita sudah baru mau tidur, tiba-tiba air langsung masuk. Tidak ada hitungan menit, kita mau keluar, air sudah sampai di dada.
Adventist institutions situated in Sentani and Doyobaru were also greatly affected. The Adventist Aviation Indonesia, the Papua Adventist Academy, the Perkumpulan Pendidikan Adventist Papua, and the newly established Adventist Health Center in Doyo were submerged in 4 feet high mud and sand after flash floods subsided. Adventist locals, missionaries, and personnel share their experiences after this devastating encounter.
Essentially, there was a landslide up about 3,000 feet elevation behind this campus, and that landslide went into a valley and created a dam. And then the water built up behind that with heavy rains on the mountain in the night. And so that then came down in a torrential force down the valley and it basically kind of ended here at Adventist Aviation. So we have areas that are up to about 8 feet under rocks and mud and sand. It's wiped out about 1 kilometer of our perimeter wall that we have here. It's knocked out our hangar, it's knocked out about 9 of our houses. The damage is quite extensive. Here in this hangar where we're at right now, we had about 3 inches or 10 centimeters of mud just caked on the floor. But thankfully we didn't have much damage other than the water damage from that. The biggest issue that we have is really our runway. It's completely damaged. It's under between 1 to 5 feet of rock and mud and logs and all kinds of debris. If we have full-time heavy equipment, an excavator, a bulldozer going, it's probably 3 months of work. So it's going to be quite some time before we can get that cleaned up.
Adventist Aviation Indonesia reported an estimated damage to properties of $5 million to restore regular operations. Restoration will take over 5 months to put everything back up and running.
Sebelumnya inilah dinding yang kami punyai untuk melindungi sekolah ini, tetapi setelah datang banjir, inilah yang terjadi. Air datang setinggi ini, setinggi bahu dan menghancurkan segala sesuatu yang ada, termasuk dinding bagian utara ini. Dan inilah bencana yang terbesar semasa sekolah ini ada. Inilah bencana yang terbesar yang pernah melanda.
The Papua Adventist Academy was severely damaged, destroying almost everything except the church. The Academy has not issued any reports as to its estimated amount of casualties. Both students and teachers are working hand in hand to identify the severity of the damage and how they can put things back together to restart classes.
Saya mengharapkan bantuan dari Tuhan dan Tuhan pasti akan membantu kita karena ini bukan pekerjaan saya pribadi, ini adalah pekerjaan dan Tuhan akan menggerakkan siapa saja yang akan membantu pekerjaan ini.
Locals said that flooding and landslides happened in the area before, but this is the most disastrous in recent years. Reports said that human activities are becoming more and more active in the mountains, resulting to more frequent and greater flash floods. With the influence and massive work of the church in this region, suggestions to relocate Adventist Aviation Indonesia and the academy to locations away from landslide-prone areas seem to be a necessity. Currently, both institutions halted their operations due to heavy damage. The Adventist Aviation Indonesia, though, coordinated with the provincial airport of Sentani to have access to its runway and hangar when AAI needs to do operations.
Kami semua memuji Tuhan, ya. Kami semua memuji Tuhan oleh karena kami dapat selamat dari bencana ini.
Locals and Adventists in the region are all recovering from the aftermath of this unanticipated event. Their prayer that soon everything will be back to its place and their mission and operations will continue to its track to serve the community and the many people they try to reach in far-flung areas.
Cyclone Idai, one of the worst tropical cyclones on record, barreled through Mozambique, Malawi, and Zimbabwe this month, leaving thousands of people displaced.
Reports now estimate that 84 people are confirmed dead in Mozambique. In total, more than 1.5 million people across the three countries have been affected by the cyclone.
The Adventist Church in East Zimbabwe sent us this report about what ADRA and the local church is doing to help a community in need.
It would have been one of the same usual nights here in the village of Ngangu, Zimbabwe, as neighbors bid goodnight greetings to one another with the promise of seeing each other in the following morning. However, the events of Friday night on the 15th of March would turn out to reap traumatizing memories in the minds of thousands of villagers in this part of Zimbabwe. This was after the devastating destruction caused by Cyclone Idai, which ravaged the eastern part of Zimbabwe as well as Mozambique and Malawi. According to United Nations, this is feared to be one of the worst weather-related disasters to ever hit the southern hemisphere. Adventist Development and Relief Agents ADRA Zimbabwe, together with the East Zimbabwe Conference, traveled to Chimanimani, a small town located on the eastern part of Zimbabwe, to witness the disaster at first hand. As these teams drove their way, it was very difficult as most of the major roads leading to the disaster site had been swept away by the floods. The events and sights looked surreal and almost even hard to believe. There is hundreds of families that have been displaced and many others gone missing. As of this moment, ADRA Zimbabwe, together with its Zimbabwe Conference, were one of the very first responders to get to the site, and they have so far gathered food and clothing to give to the families that have been affected. There is a miracle story within these calamities. The house and family of our local Adventist pastor was not affected by this disaster, and we greatly praise God for that. The pastor now continues daily to serve and help his community. He said as we talked to him that this community does not need more of sermons, but rather an assurance of God's love through acts of giving and support through these difficult times.
Coming up, we have total member involvement stories from Ethiopia and South Sudan.
And Maranatha reconstructs a very special church in Dominica. We'll be right back after the break.
Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Go and gather all the Jews who are in Susa together, and pray and fast for me. Do not eat or drink anything for 3 days and nights. I and my maidens will fast as you do. After that, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish.
Welcome back. Recently, a team of Adventist health professionals from South Sudan impacted the community during a recent total member involvement event in the capital city of Juba.
In cooperation with the country's Ministry of Health, total member involvement health professionals, led by Dr. Daniel Mashur, distributed 5,400 mosquito nets in various centers around the city of Juba. Mashur hopes that the mosquito nets will provide shelter for vulnerable women, children, and the elderly during the coming rainy season when the cases of malaria typically increase.
The Adventist Church in South Sudan sent this report.
Total member involvement is a revolutionary initiative because when you go out to first meet the physical needs of the people and then you share the word of God, you're able to create not only a working relationship with the community but a very lasting impact. And so this is something that in South Sudan has come in the right time because of the crisis that has hit the country for a number of years. Currently, we are involved as a team of 55 medical personnel in conducting medical camps in about 16 centers in Juba. And we're also conducting health education activities during the TMI events. And we're also providing support to needs of vulnerable people, particularly the pregnant and lactating mothers. In this activity, we embarked in distribution of mosquito nets. We currently have about 5,400 mosquito nets that will be distributed within these centers during the TMI activities. And we are going to target about 5,400 pregnant and lactating mothers and under 5 children and very elderly people. These are the most vulnerable groups that are mainly affected by malaria. And malaria is the #1 cause of death not only in South Sudan but in Africa. Naturally, all medical personnel are trained to save life. And you feel so much proud if you're able to do that to the most needy, and you see the impact out of that. We're in partnership with the Ministry of Health, and they supported us with these supplies. They have given us the 5,400 mosquito nets, and they have also given us a number of drugs and other medical equipments that are really helping us in conducting these medical camp activities.
On March 9, nearly 18 months after a hurricane destroyed the Beryl Seventh-day Adventist Church building, a brand new structure opened on the island of Dominica.
The new building was built by Maranatha Volunteers International. More than 300 people packed into the newly finished church for a special dedication service, which honored the memory of Maranatha founders John and Ida Mae Freeman. Maranatha Volunteers sent this report.
Nearly 18 months after being destroyed by a hurricane, the newly constructed Beryl Seventh-day Adventist Church on the island of Dominica opened its doors on March 9, 2019. Built by Maranatha Volunteers International, more than 300 people packed into the church for a special dedication. The program also honored the memory of Maranatha founders John and Ida Mae Freeman, whose family helped fundraise for the reconstruction of the Beryl Church. 4 of their daughters, who participated in the early years of their parents' mission work, attended the dedication in Dominica.
You know, when it first started, we didn't know how long this would go on, and so it's amazing to see that it just continually grows and grows. It's very meaningful to us as children to see what a legacy that he left.
The Caribbean has special significance for John and Ida Mae, who died in 2017 and 2018, respectively.
We picked this site is because it brings a lot of the things together about the Freemans. Did a lot of work in the Caribbean. He flew his plane out here, and this particular site sits high above the Caribbean. Almost makes you feel like you're in an airplane.
In September 2017, Hurricane Maria destroyed 28 of 34 Adventist churches on the island, including the Beryl Church. The Category 5 storm caused such widespread destruction, it left the people of Dominica feeling hopeless.
We all know about what happened here 2 years ago. So having a church rebuilt is like the nation is rebuilt also, and we want to take the opportunity to thank Maranatha Volunteer International for the work done.
Besides the Beryl Church, Maranatha has agreed to rebuild 3 additional structures on the island, including the Wesley Adventist Church Community Center. This is the second time Maranatha has assisted with reconstruction efforts in Dominica. In 1979, Maranatha helped to rebuild schools and houses after Hurricane David. To learn more about Maranatha's work around the world, visit Maranatha's website at maranatha.org.
Prior to total member involvement evangelistic meetings, Adventists in Ethiopia organized a series of health expositions in various parts of the country.
Unlike other countries within the East Central Africa Division territory, Seventh-day Adventist membership in Ethiopia is quite low.
While the population is more than 100 million, there are only 184,000 Seventh-day Adventists in the country.
The Seventh-day Adventist Church isn't well known in Ethiopia, and events that feature health have become a good way for people to learn more about the church and our distinctive beliefs.
Those who worked with the health exposition say that the Adventist health message is breaking down barriers, as most people are willing to attend health demonstrations where they learn how to take better care of their bodies.
As the evangelistic meetings go on in Ethiopia, 220 international speakers have come to the country to join the Ethiopian evangelists.
Joel Okindo, the East Central Africa Division's evangelism coordinator, said each church member is their own total member involvement site and must plead with God to discover their personal ministry.
Since the beginning of the quinquennium, the East Central Africa Division has been conducting regional mega evangelistic meetings in the spirit of total member involvement. Each year, the whole division focuses on one region. At this time, the focus will be on Ethiopia and South Sudan.
Coming up, Emily Mastrapa is here to tell you how to create social media content people will want to watch.
But up next, Adventist Mission shares what happens when you help support mission through your offerings.
We may look, pray, read, think, worship, sing, and share differently, but we all look forward to the Sabbath, and we all look forward to the future when Jesus will come again. With this message in mind, we arrived at a core component for a new identity system: the creation grid, a simple 7-column structure for layout. The grid is a reference both to the prophetic timeline as well as to the creation week that culminated in the 7th-day Sabbath. Regardless of what or where you are designing, you can always find information to help you communicate that we are all Seventh-day Adventists.
May I work in with you, young fella?
Yeah. Go for it.
That's the way you do it. Got to put a little weight on it. But I'll put it back up here for you.
Welcome back.
Farah gives us a tour of an orphanage in Madagascar that Your Mission offerings help support.
Adventist Mission would like to thank everyone for giving to projects like these.
Adventist Mission has more.
My name is Farah. I was asked to manage the brand new Kids Hope Orphanage here in Madagascar. We're so thankful to the World Church for their support. This residence was built with contributions made to the 13th Sabbath offering some years ago. I've been here for 1 year now. Since I arrived, we have welcomed 10 girls who would have no family, home, or future if it weren't for this residence. The youngest girl is 7 months old, and the oldest is 7 years old. Sadly, each of them has a tragic life story. That's why they're here. I know they may not realize it yet, but God has a very special plan for their lives. I'll never forget the day they arrived. Since then, they've grown so much. They're our family now, and we love them a lot. Raphaeline is the only other caregiver. Every morning, she and I bathe the girls and teach them about proper hygiene. We prepare breakfast and eat together. Then we study the Sabbath school lesson for morning worship. Raphaeline teaches the preschool lessons. We always make time for games, lunch, and even rest in the afternoon. As the girls rest, we think hard to find solutions for the many challenges we face here. The obstacles at times feel insurmountable. We need God to intervene soon. Our operational funds are scarce, and we need more caregivers. The residence can actually host more girls, but first we need to become self-supporting. Behind the building, there's room for a vegetable garden, chickens, and even a cow for milk. There are also women in the village who are willing to donate handmade crafts if we can sell them. We have many plans, but we know the right solution can only come from God. Sabbath is a special day around here. The girls eat a delicious meal, then we put on our best clothes and walk to church together. At church, the girls meet other young friends, listen to Bible stories, and worship. Above all, we pray earnestly that God will help us teach the children to follow the right path. We house them here at the orphanage in hope that they will choose to live forever in our heavenly home.
This quarter, a portion of the 13th Sabbath offering will provide needed resources for the Kids Hope Orphanage in Madagascar. Your contributions will also sponsor the construction of an Adventist orphanage and HIV/AIDS rehabilitation center in Mozambique. More projects in the Southern Africa region will go toward building or improving schools and community centers. Please pray for members of the Adventist Church working in Mozambique and Sao Tome and Principe. And thank you for your support of the 13th Sabbath offering.
You can watch this and other mission stories online by visiting AdventistMission.org, then click on videos at the top.
A few weeks ago, Emily shared how to get strong engagement on your social media posts.
This week, she's back to talk about how once your followers are engaged, you can consistently have strong content for them.
Designing social media content that both works for your brand and is visually appealing can be a challenge, especially if you don't have a background in visual design. Here are just a few tips for how you can design engaging social media content. One thing you should focus on is being consistent. You want to set guidelines and then stick to them. That way, with just one glance, your audience will know that your content came from you. The church is doing this with our visual identity system. Hopefully you've already seen this, and the identity system will help people know we're Seventh-day Adventists before they even see our logo or name by using the creation grid and the Sabbath column. Check out our Instagram page at Adventist Church to see how we're using the Sabbath column. We hope that you will use it too. Another tip is to find inspiration from others, but also make the content your own. Be original. You want people to recognize your visuals as your own. Lastly, when in doubt, keep it simple. If you're unsure of which way you should go with your design, just simplify. Here's another chance for you to use the identity system. It's easy to use, and I think it will really help you create great content while also looking polished and uniform. Head to identity.adventist.org to learn more about the identity system. I hope this helps, and we look forward to seeing your engaging social media content.
And finally, for today's episode, let's turn to Alejandra Castilla for a look at Adventist history.
This week, we hear about the life of John G. Madison, a powerful preacher of the Adventist message.
Hello and welcome to This Week in Adventist History. John G. Madison, an editor and minister of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, died on March 30th in 1896. Originally a Baptist preacher, he became an Adventist evangelist who, by the time of his death at age 60, had become a major figure in establishing the Adventist Church among the Scandinavians in the U.S. and Europe. Madison was born in Langland, Denmark, and received a good literary and musical education during his youth. He emigrated to the United States in 1854 along with his parents and two sisters. At age 24, Madison became a Christian. The following year, he attended a Baptist seminary in Chicago. By the time of his graduation and ordination as minister 2 years later, he had married Anna Siversen from Tromsø, Norway. Together, the Madisons moved to Wisconsin, where he pastored a Danish-speaking Baptist congregation. Madison first learned of the Seventh-day Adventist faith in 1863, and he brought many people with him to the church. At the request of his former congregation, he gave a 6-month-long series of lectures explaining his new beliefs. As a result, all except one family followed him to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. This church would soon become the second Scandinavian Adventist church in America. Madison became a powerful preacher of the Advent message, with special emphasis on the love of God. He conducted revivals and established churches all over the Midwestern United States. In 1877, the General Conference sent Madison and his family to Europe. After tireless years in service of the church in Europe, Madison returned to the United States in 1888, where he worked as an editor of the church's Scandinavian publications despite serious health problems. His last 3 years were spent at Union College in Nebraska as a Bible teacher and editor. That was This Week in Adventist History.
Thanks for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
We'd love to hear from you, so send us your feedback and tell us how your church is making a difference in its community.
And be sure to capture plenty of video footage and photos. Then write up a summary of the event's important details. And feel free to send us full video reports as well.
You can reach us by sending an email to annvideo11@gmail.com.
Before we say goodbye, there's good news from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7, verse 9.
The passage says, "Know that the Lord your God is God, the faithful God who keeps his gracious covenant loyally for 1,000 generations with those who love him and keep his commandments."
Amen. That's our program this week, and remember, you can always visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
Take care.